Okay, so firstly, we will create this repository here. Let's name this phantom remote because we have to distinguish between remote and local. So I'm keeping the name as that. And in GitHub, there are two aspects. One is the remote part and one is the local part. So in this one, what I am doing is I am first creating a remote repository. I have nothing in my local right now. Local means this PC right now, nothing is there. And I will connect them. Uh, my purpose is to establish a connection between them. And there are some ways which I will be showing. So let me keep it private right now. Since I am creating it remotely, no files are there. So just let me add the README here and now create the repository. By default, this part, master, this part is by default stated as main. So I just went to the settings yesterday and renamed this to master. This I will show in the future video definitely. Let's create the repository. So cool. I have this phantom remote right here. And before in the introduction, in the introductory section, I have told you that we have to install Git GUI that can be available here. Just go here, and not even Git GUI is required. You can go directly here. Just go to this website. Cool. It's for Windows, and you can select your operating system from here. This is Git, and inside this, you will after downloading, you will get the terminal as well as the GUI, the graphical aspect of that. So, if you download this, it will be very streamlined and easy for you to uh, keep have your communications with the remote and the local. Cool. So I have it downloaded, and now let's go to. I will copy this part. This is HTTPS. Cool. And SSH I will come later. SSH connection. This is the method of authentication of connecting your remote and local repositories. So cloning is the first method in which you can connect your remote as well as the local repository. And another one, the other one is by establishing a local repository first and then connecting it with remote. That's not cloning. I will come step by step. Okay, so as I was saying, let us copy this part, this HTTPS URL. Let's copy it, and I will go to this folder, this Git practice folder, which I have created for demonstration purposes of this video. So I will right click here inside this folder anywhere and click Git bash here. After downloading and installing Git from the website I just mentioned, you will get Git GUI and Git bash inside this drop down every time after it's installed. So let's click Git bash here. I hope you can see my screen. Let's write git clone and click on paste. Cool. So you can see the repository link here. This is the remote repository link. And right, hit enter. You can see cloning into phantom remote. This means an exact copy of my remote repository is now inside my local repository. This is one way of connecting remote and local aspects of the GitHub. Cool. Now let's explore one thing. Inside it, how can we be sure that this is a Git repository? Firstly, there is a README that's okay. We initialized the remote one with a README. So, but that's not the way. Let us click on View and click on Hidden Items. You can see .git is here. This means that this remote repository is initialized with Git because we had our remote repository uh, on the web and we just copied it here, cloned it here. Cool. Now what I will do is I will go to my this part and I will delete this repository. Cool. You can also see how to delete a repository here in this video. Let's delete it, and you can read it here. It's just saying that uh, if it's a big repository, we should be very careful before deleting it. Cool. So I just writing it here. I understand the consequence. Delete this repository. Cool. Now I have this repository here right now. What I want to do is I want to connect, or I want to connect this local part with my remote once again. But I have my repository deleted. What I will do now? Let's see. I will go into this folder. It's not necessary to view it in right now. Let's click on git bash here. What I will do is now is git remote add origin. Now wait, git remote add origin means to the remote section of GitHub, I am adding this URL. Which URL? I have not shared right now as the origin. Cool. This is the terminology of GitHub, what it uses. And for the URL, I need the remote repository, which I don't have because I just deleted it. Let's create it once again. Random remote. Okay. Now let's keep it private. Now one thing, many aspects are being demonstrated in this video. Since inside the repository which I just cloned into my local, it had the readme. I will not add a readme file here right now because it will otherwise it will create conflicts. It will create merge conflicts. It will a conflict in fact, which will not allow us to connect the remote so easily. So that is why it's recommended not to add a readme file when doing this step, because this has a readme file. Okay. Now I will create repository. It has been created. Now I want to add the remote and local part. You do not need to see all this right now. So what I will do, I will copy this URL once again. You can see the same URL is here. Let's copy and let's paste it here. See now what it tells. Remote origin already exists. Cool. This is an interesting thing. Now what I will say is, when we have a local repository, we should first initialize it with a file, any file, before connecting it with the remote. So let's add add any file right now. For example, let's keep it here, and inside the git bash I will say git add dot. It means staging the file or saving the file. Now I will say git commit minus m, any comment. Okay, cool. It's done. Now once again I will what I will do. Now I will do git push origin master. I am exploring ways to connect with the remote because I already have the local. Now let's see what it does. Cool. It got connected. Now let's refresh it. You can see the new first text document is right here. So this means our remote and local repositories have been connected once again. Now what happens is many a times when we did the last step, this step, uh, as our local was already established but remote wasn't, what we did is get remote add origin and the URL of the remote repository. After creating it, it said remote origin already exists. Cool. uh, but after that we created a file, saved and committed it, and pushed those changes. Pushing means whatever I am saving inside my local, I am making sure it's going to the remote repository as well. There are some other steps mentioned, steps involved also. I will come to them later, definitely. And in this step, lastly, what I did, git push origin master, it got pushed to the origin or to the remote part. But earlier, while I was exploring it myself, what I saw was, even if I was doing git push origin master, it was not taking my request. It was saying, earlier it was saying ki remote origin already exists, but after I wrote git push origin master, it was saying the repository does not exist. So contradictory. At one time it's saying it exists, at one time it's saying it doesn't. What I did to resolve it was, I just wrote git push the URL, the URL of the repository, then master. Okay, like this. I'm showing you. Cool. See, just a minor change in with what I said. It was git push hyphen hyphen all and the URL of my remote repository. This resolved my problem while I was going to push my local changes to the remote. This was a very confusing one. It didn't happen this time. I don't know why. Now let's see one more example of how to connect the remote and the local repositories. I will delete my local repository here, and I will also delete my remote repository here. Cool. Now I will wait. Now I will not make any repository remotely first. I will first make a repository locally. Okay. Now I will create a folder. Let's write phantom local to distinguish between remote and local. And since I want to connect it with GitHub remotely, I have to initialize it. How I will do? Inside the phantom local folder, we will click on git bash here, and then we will write git init. That means initialize. Initialized, you can see initialized empty git repository. Cool. This URL, this is the path. D git practice phantom local dot git. Now, since I do not have any remote place to store all my local files, I definitely have to create a remote repository first. Repository means a container to store all my files and folders. Now I will create a remote repository. Cool. This is phantom remote to distinguish. I will keep it private for now. And I don't have any readme here. So it won't be a problem if I add a readme here. If my local had a readme, which can be created using a command, checking this step would have created conflicts as I just mentioned earlier. So let's create repository. This will set master as the default branch. And now what I will do is, I will copy this URL, HTTPS authentication. SSH I will be dealing with later. I will be showing you. I will go here. Inside this git bash, I will write git remote add origin, and which repository I am going to add with this remote local part. This is the URL. So this command means this is the URL of that remote repository which I am going to add to this local repository. That means connection establishment. Let's hit enter. It's showing nothing. What we will do, we will write git remote /v. So you can see origin https github.com, my name phantomremote.git. This has been saved and this has been connected. It means now we will want to do git push origin master. See, I did this intentionally. It says fail to push some references to HTTPS this URL, remote URL. Uh, Currently, I do not know. SRC ref spec master does not match any. What does this mean? But I have come to know that if we initialize with some files, as I was telling earlier, we can get past this error. Simply, just anything, just any text document or whatever file you want, you create inside your local folder, add it. That means stage it, and um, commit it. Anything, any message, but meaningful message. It will be helpful for you. So we have our files committed. Now we can do the get origin master. How did I come here? Using the up and down arrow. Okay, it scrolls back in history. Cool. Okay, updates are rejected because the remote contains work that you do. Okay, let's see what resolves it. So last time you saw that I was getting errors while I was going to push my local changes into the remote, because it was saying due to some unrelated histories or some other work that I have done in remote, it is not allowing me to integrate those changes from local into remote. So before that, I had to make sure that all of them means local and remote are at the same place. Then it will allow me to do the merging, but it didn't allow. It behaves oddly sometimes. So I took help of Stack Overflow and wrote this command: git pull hyphen hyphen allow hyphen unrelated hyphen histories origin master. I hit enter. After that, it asked me to create one more commit. So okay, I did one more commit in the same way as I showed you last time. Any message you want, but it will be good if you write a meaningful one. So I wrote this, I hit enter, and then I wrote git push origin master. Cool. After I hit enter, all those conflicts were resolved, and all my local files which I created were showing on the remote, as you can see right now. See, so this is showing 3 because in the last part I wrote git commit m3. Now I can show that if I want to do anything inside this file, it will get reflected there. Now it's empty, it's 0 bytes. Now if I come to this notepad which I created inside my local, if I write this, it won't show here, because even if the connection is established, the changes in the remote part, changes in the local part are not pushed to the remote, as I just told earlier. What I will do, I will do firstly git add dot for staging the file. It file was already staged, but the change in the file was not staged. I will do git commit -m for commit if you want. The change is committed. Now I will do git push origin master. See, it has gone into master. Now if I refresh my new text document here, it will show hello phantom, as you can see here. Cool. So that was for this part. In this video, I showed you how to establish a connection between the remote and local aspects of GitHub.